evening. Welcome to the July 11th Village Board public meeting, work session. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, are you going to take roll?
I am. Thank you, Mayor. Trustee Bazemore?
Present.
Trustee Cotton?
Present.
Trustee Levin?
Present.
Trustee Herrera?
Present.
And Mayor Gary.
Present.
Is there anyone here to speak on the two resolutions that are before the board this evening? Resolution A, resolution granting a permit for public gathering pursuant to Chapter 186 of the Village of Ossining Code. Whereas on Saturday, July 14, 2018, pursuant to Village of Ossining Code Section 186-2, an application was sent to the Chief of Police of the Ossining Police Department for a permit to conduct a public event at Market Square on Saturday, July 14, 2018 at 2 p.m. And whereas the stated purpose of the event is to rally in opposition to federal immigration policy, and whereas pursuant to Village of Ossining Code Section 186-3, the application for the permit was investigated by the Chief of Police, who determined that the information required by Section 186-2 had been provided, and that the proposed gathering is otherwise lawful and can be held without undue interference with vehicular and pedestrian traffic within the village, and the Chief of Police discussed with one of the event's organizers the start time for the event. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees grants a permit for the above described public event to be held at Market Square on Saturday, July 14, 2018 at 2 p.m. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? I just wanted for the public's knowledge, every time this comes up, we say we would like to update our policy so that every single rally and event that takes place in Market Square is not required to come to the board for a vote on a resolution. But it just hasn't risen to the top of our legislative agenda yet. When it does, I believe there will be significant support for this to become an operational decision. But for now, I'm pleased to be able to support this latest request for an event in Market Square. All in favor? Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Resolution B, resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated July 11, 2018 in the amount of $404,680.78. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Comments on the board? No?
Well, I would say half of this is capital.
Oh.
It's a lot. About half of of this was for a lot of the new sewer line work that we're doing, as well as also some other work on highways and roads.
Great. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do we have a motion to adjourn legislative session into work session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Madam Manager, are you discussing this, or is Stuart? Are we talking about leak detection services at this stage?
No, I was actually, if I could, just ask you if I could move up the MOGO discussion and the Environmental Advisory Committee, because I'm not sure that either one of our guests want to stay for the whole agenda. And if that would be okay with you, I would like to invite Tracy Corbett to come up and talk about MOGO from Westchester County Planning.
Of course. Come on up, Tracy. Do we have a seat for Tracy? Would you like to offer any further introduction of Tracy Corbett as she joins us at the table? Wearing her current hat and letting people know about your hat.
So we are very happy that Tracy is here. She's representing the Westchester County right now. She has been a very integral part of the MOGO plan that is going on with 3 municipalities, ours, the town of Ossining, and Millbrook. And we're very happy to announce that she'll be joining us on our team. So thank you so much for coming over to the Village of Ossining's team. But tonight she is representing the county. She's still an employee there.
Yes.
She'll be joining us in August, and we're very happy to have her. She has extensive experience in planning, and I believe it is the perfect time to have someone of her caliber join our team.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Yes, I'm Tracy Corbett. I'm a principal planner with the Westchester County Department of Planning through the end of the week. And Westchester County partnered with the town of Ossining, the village of Ossining, and the town of Newcastle on the Hudson River Valley Greenway grant that the town of Ossining applied for. The county provided our staff time, my time really, and GIS and planning services as a match to this grant. So the purpose of the project was really to look at how can we make better connectivity for trails and pedestrians for biking in this study area of these three municipalities. Actually, the area didn't go really beyond Millwood, and that's how we got the MOGO, is Millwood, Ossining, Go. So that was kind of the logo that was created by the committee. So the study we looked at existing conditions of the area and looked at how can we connect parks, commercial areas, and there are a lot of north-south trails in this study area. We have the Old Croton Aqueduct, we have the North County Trail, the Peekskill Briarcliff Trail, and then Riverwalk, which isn't as official, but there are pieces of it. So some of the objectives was really to start making the east-west connections. So if you flip through the plan, I'm just going to go through very quickly. There is a quick summary of the municipalities. These are excerpts from the comprehensive plan and how they were considered bikes and what were their objectives. Then we also took a look at all the existing trails. The real important one is the Empire State Trail, that is utilizing the North County Trail. And that Empire State Trail is Governor Cuomo's new trail that's going to connect from New York City all the way up to Plattsburgh, and then it goes from Albany all the way up to Buffalo. So tapping into that is an important tourist resource. And if you flip through, we have a nice summary of all the different trails and the maps of the trails, so it's a good reference, and the Westchester Riverwalk. So the committee actually went out and we had some bicycle people, we had local officials from each municipality and from their various boards. And we kind of outlined some trails and how do we make these connections. Part of that was just through mapping. We had a community workshop where we kind of talked to people about the different type of trails, and people could have input with their stickies, what they liked and didn't like. And then there was a whole survey, which I'm not going to get into the details, that was also done online. So, and then there will be this, what it evolved into was the proposed trail map. So the idea is to create almost a system of trails that's almost like a ski map. You know, if you've ever gone skiing, a ski slope, that there's different levels for different riders. Well, they thought it was important to have ones for advanced cyclists if you really want to ride and get out there. There is a good community of people like that, and but then just ones for even the recreational riders, and then ones that is more for our commercial areas. The village of Ossining actually has a pretty high percentage, higher than most of Westchester, of people without cars. So it is important, and a lot of people with lower incomes use bicycles to get around. So the red on the map is indicative of where would be much more of a complete streets, a more high intense, they have better services. The lighter green would be more for recreational riders, and that might just be a painted path with signage. And then the darker green would be, those are probably just be marked with signage and advertised. These are places to ride. One of the most important connections that they determined, and the best way to get up to the North County Trail, which is really the premier bicycling recreational corridor, is on 133. It was interesting that we did have New York State DOT did partner with us. They thought this was interesting to make a connection from a train station to the Empire State Trail, and it is feasible to have a bike trail on 133 according to the New York State DOT. So that is an appendix to this plan. Excuse me. So the committee also came up with other goals and recommendations, and one of them is to implement the trail plan. And other things are to support bicycling in the neighborhood, or in the study area. This would include looking to get bike shares, electric pedal assist bikes, supporting that type of legislation. And then also reasons why we do it is also to improve the public health of residents, and also to make safer routes to schools for children. So there's a series of I think it goes up to G of the different reasons, the different policy goals. So by adopting this plan, the committee is looking for the municipalities to adopt this plan. It's really a policy document that will allow the municipalities to look for grant funding to implement these goals and objectives. So it's really good if you're a grant writer that you can point to say, we want to turn this area into a more advanced bicycle-friendly street. And it's been identified by this plan. We did this whole plan. So that's one of the benefits of adopting this, and the village can point to it for all these different types of programs. There is one, we did not get to it, unfortunately, because of my time ending, is that there's a social equity portion of this, and that minorities and people of color are more likely to be in a bike accident and hit by vehicles. So it's also a social equity component of this, and why it's important to support bike things. So when you're looking forward about social equity issues and providing people who have limited finances, improving your bike infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure is really important. So if you have any questions, this is a really quick run through. And you can read through the policies, and if you have any future questions, you can reach out to me through my work email through Friday. Otherwise, I actually have a village email set up if there are other questions going forward. The town supervisor for Dawsoning was the chair of this. She's also a good resource to speak about it. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here.
I'll also let folks know that if you go to because the town of Ossining was the lead, and Dana Ledford is the chair of this group. If you go to the townofossining.com, that's their website, one of the first things that you'll see is the MOGO information. Click right on that. You can see this map that we've been talking about. You have an opportunity to give some feedback and then to see a lot of the details that Tracy was just explaining to us. You had more than one session, actually, of public engagement. This was right out here in this lobby, and then we had some incorporated town. And I know that a lot of our local cyclists have been involved. I'm certainly not one of those people, and I think it's quite remarkable how many people in the community actually bike up the Ossining Hills. And we're very grateful for those folks who are the avid, accomplished cyclists who've been part of figuring out what might work from a really functional perspective. Now, is there a next step for us as a village entity that's part of this? Because Lynn, who's now been gone for a couple of months, had been participating, and so I'm not sure if the village is fully up to speed on anything that's happened in the last couple of months.
The town of Austin is actually preparing a model resolution for the municipalities to adopt, and I haven't seen that because I'm really got a plan production one, so and that was my role in this project. And I mean, what it is it is a guidance document for you to move forward with in partnership with these other municipalities. Some of the projects do connect, so it gives you opportunities to work together, especially like the 133. The state, even though the air ProNav in the village is not a state road, they did analyze it.
It is a state road.
It is the state road? Is it all the way down here?
All of ProNav, so Route 133
Oh.
is a state road.
Yeah. The state didn't think so. So they did analyze that whole length of that road. And if you were to do that complete project, you would be partnering together on that. And any other of the sections. So, or you could do a section on your own. It does give you something to point to for funding. If there are policies that are identified and then adopted in the plan, it does give you leverage up when you're looking for grants. There are a lot of grants right now through the TAP CMAQ grant program. Trails are really, they actually are looked upon very favorably. for transportation alternatives. So that is a good funding source. So if you've already done this groundwork and identifying certain areas where we want to do this, it definitely gives you points in the grant process.
Perfect. Anybody else have questions or comments for Tracy?
Yeah, I just thank you for the hard work on this. I think this is great to see, sort of all the trail organization and creating connections between municipalities, and obviously having a map where people can know the different levels of, skill that they might require in order to make their way around the different trails. Is this document that you've given us, is this available, will this be available online so that people can review it? Do we have a PDF? We
Sure.
can put on the website?
I can send you a PDF of this
Yeah, if
document.
you could send it to, I guess, to Debbie, so that they have it, because this is a very, there's a lot of information, obviously around the history and the evolution of the project. So thanks so much for your efforts, and obviously we look forward to having you join us.
Yeah. And there still might be a few more edits. This was actually just still being edited today for some typos and things, so
Okay.
there might still be some, so it might still even be a little bit in the draft format, and there might be a few tweaks here and there.
Yeah, just if you could, anytime we do a public meeting, we always like to push stuff out there, even if there's, it's not perfect, you can say it's a draft, but at least everybody gets to see what's going on. Thanks.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the town of Austining for taking the lead on this. I think the village residents, and we will really be major beneficiaries of this, as it's a way to connect from the train station through the village of Austining to out to Millwood and the North County Trail and points east of us. And it's consistent with our desires to improve transit options generally for our community. There's also some information here about pedal assist for those folks who might be slightly more skilled than me, but not as skilled as some of the people who already ride their bikes up the hill, given that we are a village of hills. And I understand that those are increasingly more frequently available in some of the bike share programs that are becoming not just common in New York City, but throughout some of the larger communities in Westchester. So I think we're coming to this not a moment too soon. I look forward to seeing what we can do next. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Debbie, you were suggesting a different order of operations. Do we want to ask Jeff to go next, did you say?
I think that would be great if we could do that and ask Jeff if you could come up. He is our chairman for the Environmental Advisory Council, and we thank you so much for coming and giving us a report today.
You want to sit over there as well, so that you have a microphone?
And Jeff, thank you very much. You are certainly the senior ranking member of the Environmental Advisory Council. It had a few years in the middle there since I got to know you. I served on the EAC before I was a village trustee. And you have a new liaison. Rika has joined recently, as well as a number of new members to the Environmental Advisory Council. And you are rejuvenated with lots of ideas and energy and new projects. And you also have your annual report, which is the first time it's been provided in many years. So thank you very much for getting us up to date on what's been going on and giving us some insight into what's next for you.
Thank you, and I think you're absolutely right. Rika has been a tremendous addition, even though non-voting, to our committee and council, and has been a spark of energy, as have the new members, all of whom are really fonts of energy and wanting to do things. Had I been giving reports during the hiatus when I didn't even know I was chairman, the reports would have been one page, because we basically weren't doing anything. In the early period, the last report I could find, actually Jay McCain could find, was 2010, prepared by the chair, then was Doreen Burton. She prepared. I did not look back further because that was the most recent, and so I tried to copy that organization. And I think Stuart handed out copies to all of you today. As far back as I could trust memory was the beginning of 2017, which is why I denominated it annual report for 2017, continuing through to last week. And I continued through last week because even if I had only done last year, there wouldn't have been much on it. We discovered 2 years ago, maybe 3, when Stuart first drew our attention to it, that we didn't have enough members to have a meeting. We didn't have a quorum. 3, sometimes 4 members during that period, and the quorum then was 5 because there were 9 positions. As you know, the board recently reduced the number of positions to 7, so the quorum is now 4. And frankly, since the new members have been on, I don't think we've ever had fewer than 5 or 6 members present, so it's worked out quite well. We are working to try to professionalize our recommendations, all of which so far have gone to the planning board. I guess that's the primary recipient of our recommendations insofar as they involve the LWRP. We have discussed recommendations to the Board of Trustees, but haven't actually put any of them on paper yet. One was we had a presentation to us by somebody who's very involved, who was very involved, maybe still is, in the Sunshine Home up on Spring Valley Road. That's not actually in us, but it does affect us because that road starts in us. And one of the concerns that they articulated to us was traffic. It's a narrow road, as most of you probably know. So we were very interested in that, and the board, the EAC, the council was talked about preparing a letter to send to the Board of Trustees with recommendations of positions that the Board of Trustees should take on, acknowledging that it's not really in your jurisdiction, but you're not uninterested because it does affect your jurisdiction. We haven't done that yet. I hope we will do that before the end of this year, get something. We also talked about advising the board that the village needs some sort of a green code. I'm not sure what a green code is, but I think it's something that would encourage construction that would reduce energy usage, and make the town more the village more environmentally friendly. I don't know whether that's part of the task even to write, as it sounds like it is. I suspect it is. But it is something that there's a lot of interest among the new membership to try to do something about. So hopefully that's something that we hear. Once again, as the report lays out, we worked with the town committee. Mitzi Elkis is a sort of fond manager of her own, and worked with that committee to man the EAC booth at the Village Fair, which is something I've done, I think, every year that I've been on this committee, except one when I wasn't around. It's a great way to work with the town for the village people, group of us, and that's something I hope to expand. And I think you'll see in the annual report the last 2 or 3 things we have done, which are the first 2 or 3 official reviews of development plans within the LWRP area, which, as you probably know, is anywhere from Route 9 to the Hudson River inside the village. And we haven't done those reports in a very long time. We're trying to do them in a more professional and thorough way. And I think the one that we submitted to the board, to the planning board most recently, was a substantial step up from the ones we had done in the past. So that's that. One of the things that I see you've got on the agenda, and again, I wish I knew more about, is our open space inventory. That's a project that we have actually started on. People have contacted Susie Ross, who's here, to give her own report tonight from Green Austin. One of the members went and got several examples of open space inventories from around the county, and I think outside the county, that we're going to use as a model. Since we commenced that about 2 or 3 months ago, we actually have meetings have been very busy with reviews of development projects, so we haven't returned to it recently. We have a large project we have to review now and get recommendations out before the end of the summer. Due date yet, but we've asked for an extension from the planning board. It's very large, it's the one down on Water Street. But I hope that by the spring we'll be back working on the open space inventory. There's some basic questions that we haven't determined yet, like are we only going to count publicly owned land? Are we going to count all publicly owned land? There's a lot of little small triangles here. Or are we going to only count publicly owned land that's an acre or more, for instance? When we get that together, hopefully it will be a good and as professionally looking as Susie's was for the town. That's about it.
Thanks, Jeff. That was great. I just wanted to, I feel like I'm yelling.
You're fine.
Okay. Just wanted to just let the public know the EAC's Environmental Advisory Council. So a big chunk of what you guys were doing, and the committee's just been amazing. I mean, the talent on the committee has just been really amazing. So developers that are supposed to go in front of the EAC, it just hasn't been happening because of the big form issue, but now they are. And it's everything from, trying to use, discussing the plants and landscaping, which are more environmentally friendly to this area, right down to the water wells, water catchment. We've got a couple of people who, are like basically, I don't think they're engineers, but one of them I think actually is. And the developers, I think, are taken aback by the amount of knowledge the committee has as a group. I've always said that groups always produce greater than any single individual. And I think this committee's done a really great job. And the annual report is great because we found out that you don't have to actually do the annual report at the end of the year. It actually says you just have to do it before it's over, so you're sort of done. Congratulations, first committee to sort of get that done.
Hopefully it'll double in length at the end of the year.
No, I think it's great, and it's a public, this is, the public can view all of the meetings of the EAC as well, and I'm sure that this will go on the website, I would assume, right, Stuart? If this report would go, is it a public thing that you put it on the website under the committees?
We can certainly do that. There's no reason why not.
Okay, so then the public can sort of get more involved. And for me personally, it was really a great moment when I went to a planning board meeting. They're very close together, and how respectful the planning board was, and how grateful they were for the insight and the input from this committee, showing us that citizen groups who have different mandates. They may not know each other, actually contribute to the total picture, so I appreciate that, I thank you for that. And I think you stayed chairman for a while, even though I keep hearing hints that you were surprised to become one. But you're staying with us for a while. Thank you.
I wasn't actually surprised, I was just never informed that it was official. I figured it could have sort of happened in an evolutionary way. I was the last one standing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So,
Stay, we might have more comments for you.
Oh, okay.
so I definitely want to thank you as the chair and also all the members of the EAC. I am particularly looking forward to the Open Space Inventory Initiative and the completion. That's really a relevant source of information coming to us at the best time while we kind of analyze and work through what open spaces mean to us and what prospectively can be done, or what the board and the village, either through recreation or through development, whatever route that may go. I think that that this committee is going to really enable that conversation to be had in a whole different light. So thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you. Thank you for providing the first annual report in a number of years. I just want to clarify, the EAC meetings are listed on the village website. I don't believe they've ever been recorded and televised.
We
so-
don't film the
No,
videos.
okay.
But-
No, I just want to focus.
Minutes are.
But the minutes are published, yes. And so this report, perhaps it can go, Jamie, it can go on the EAC page on the village website, so.
It's on the meeting tonight, but I'll switch it over.
Right, because a year from now, nobody will find it in tonight's meeting. I just wanted to clarify, the EAC, when we talk about they have a formal role that they're expected to weigh in, when Jeff was referencing the LWRP, that is a document that, I guess, 36 categories that are considered as what would be the environmental impact of a development that is west of Route 9 up to the Hudson River. And that is a document that is filed with New York State. Not every community does it, but we do, and we in fact updated it a few years back. And that is a formal role that the EAC is expected to provide, and that's the reports that Jeff was referencing, and that's sent to the planning board for their consideration. And the EAC as a council, the planning board and the developer, they are required to respond to any of the questions and concerns raised by the EAC. They don't necessarily have to do what is asked or recommended, but they are required to acknowledge it and respond to the questions and concerns that are raised by the EAC. And it's an important step in the review process for the planning board, because the planning board can then take into consideration those concerns, and it could impact the site plan, the site plan approval for any given development in that area. But then the other aspect of what the EAC does is more of the exciting fun stuff that Jeff was talking about, that having this more completed board and a rejuvenated board with this wealth of talent that Rico was referring to means that they can act as an advisory group to us on the village board. And so there were a couple of items that you raised, Jeff, that I wanted to give you some of my thoughts on that you can bring back to the members of the EAC and how you may want to move forward. You mentioned you had a visitor come to one of your meetings to talk about the potential impact of development that's happening just outside the village, and traffic was one of the components. The reason why I've been paying attention to those developments, there's Sunshine and there's also another one that's actually in the town of Portland. Both of them are adjacent to the Indian Brook Reservoir. So that's particularly why it may be of an environmental concern for us if there's major developments going on there. So if you do provide us with any recommendations, I'd be grateful for the insights of the EAC if that's something you're going to look into, and I'd welcome your thoughts on that.
We will.
Thank you. And then green building code guidelines. The first month that I was mayor in 2015, we sat here in this room and we had some wonderful presentations from both Yonkers and Hastings, who have green building code guidelines, and their approaches are completely different. Completely different. You've got a small village, much smaller than us, and a large city, much larger than us. And I felt it was a really valuable presentation for us to consider how we might move forward. John's nodding his head, he remembers that. It was a really an interesting concept. It is a major undertaking, and there are a variety of ways that it could be approached, and I think that the EAC would be a really terrific group to offer us guidance on that. But my recommendation would be look in the January 2015 meetings. There's a community meeting held right here, and that was the focus of the agenda that night.
Yeah, I was just going to say there should be voluminous documentation around the codes of those different municipalities and their approach. Any type of green building code scenario would also play into our building codes and the village itself. So, the building departments and kind of, I think it's a project that I think is very critical. Energy conservation is critical, and I think anytime we're renovating or reconstructing or rebuilding or building anew, we should be considering these things. So I'm glad you got the committee's enthusiastic.
Good. I will, if I can just add something, that in the time that I've been on the committee, which apparently is at least 8 years, we have had 3 or 4 initiatives that have gone nowhere. We're in the statute, the enabling statute, where specific measures were suggested to a significant tree in the road. And we actually put some effort into putting that out, we got it out. For instance, one of the limitations is the owner of the tree has to want it designated. And we got a lot of comments from the community about other people's trees that should be designated with no vehicle and how to actually meet the limitations of the statute. I thought that was kind of humorous, but it ended up going nowhere. We tried at one point, as you may recall, those of you who've been on the board a while, we tried to get some of the vacant spots filled with high school students because it allowed statute, again, the enabling statute allowed, I think 18-year-olds to be on it. And I thought, one, they got energy, and 2, what a great thing to have in your college application. And it never got off the ground. One of the members contacted a professor, a science professor, who knew a teacher at the high school, and we got some recommendations, but then somebody's father thought he shouldn't do that, he should be studying or something, and they never got off the ground. So hopefully we'll have more luck with some of these things. Part of the problem has been, frankly, not having templates for how to do it. And that's why learning that Susie had done the open space inventory for the town was such a boom to us, and why that's a project that's semi off the ground. So I'm excited to hear that there's this green code stuff that can provide us with a template. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Debbie, we're jumping all over. What do you want to do next?
We have 2 very, very short items of business to talk about first, and then we want to turn our full attention to Susie because she has so much to share with us. But very quickly, if I could ask Stuart to talk about the leak detection contract that we'd like to put on the agenda of the next meeting.
I think it's humorous that the lawyer gets to talk about leaks, but here we go. This is actually a renewal of an annual contract that DPW has with Admiral Conservation Services with regard to leaks in the water system. The equipment that is used is actually the village's equipment, which they obtain from ACS. ACS then monitors the system, and in the event that there are leaks or other issues, they will so notify the village. This is a 1-year agreement that we have, that we are proposing with ACS, and it includes, what their standard fees are. The standard fee is $15,000. There are additional per visit fees depending upon the hour of the day that they would be called upon to do this. I've spoken with Andy Teese, who is very much in favor of doing this, and my recommendation would be to have a resolution brought before the board next week to authorize the village manager to execute this agreement with ACS. It would be a 1-year renewable agreement. It's going to be overall a 4-year agreement.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, is this a budgeted item? Does this fall within the budget of the water plant?
It is a budgeted item.
Okay. So we kind of knew this was coming.
It's something that we do every year. It actually saves us a lot of money because the company can really identify exactly where a leak is, so we're not ripping up a whole road to find where a leak is, and so we do it every year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that when we first did this, it was at the time when we were working with the New York City Water, and we were able to save so much money by the discovery of this one leak that we achieved a financial bonus that's eventually going to be used to buy water-saving toilets for all of our, I know it's really exciting and sexy, but at the end of the day, we were able to get a program where we can provide water-saving toilets for our citizens so that we can continue to save water. I mean, water is a very precious thing, and we need to be very conscious of how we use it and we don't waste it. And Andy's engagement with this particular technology made it possible for us not only to save water, but also to get another benefit through the New York City water. Thanks.
Okay, so there'll be a resolution on for next week, Stuart?
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds good.
All right, and the other quick business is, as you all know, we have been writing CFA grants. We have found out that we do require a resolution of support from the board. And so you've been provided one resolution, I believe, for the one we knew about, which was the Main Street grant. But we also would like resolutions of support for the Green Innovation Grant Program, which will help us fund up to 90%, no guarantee, but up to 90% of the cost of the green roof on the new water treatment plant, which is currently estimated at about $1.3 million. So it's about $1 million grant. It would be a really, and we definitely want to support the green roof. We also would like permission to apply for $500,000, which is the maximum possible through the Heritage Foundation for the improvements to 200 Main Street. So we did speak with them. We are eligible. We are in a heritage area. It's an application that we would submit through them. We can get up to 500. The cost of that remediation at this point is about $800,000. So that would go a long way for us to offset that cost. The New York Main Street program, I'm happy to report there are 4 people that are interested in taking advantage of that. We do not know what the total cost is yet because we're getting some bids from them, but we do need a resolution of support from you saying that you support us applying for this money. And then the last one is a little bit tenuous, I think. It's to upgrade our local waterfront revitalization plan. And we prepared this because we'd like the opportunity to do it if we need it, but I will tell the board that I think that we may be able to do that in-house. I spoke to a consultant that I had worked with in the past about it, and there are just some minor adjustments that we think we might be able to just do in-house. So even though I would ask for you to do it so that if we move forward and decide that it would be advantageous for us to apply for something, then I'd like the opportunity to do it, but again, we may not need it. And so we would need those resolutions next week.
I did want to ask about the Main Street grant, and we'll remind folks that that is an opportunity for property owners on Croton Avenue, it could be commercial properties or residential properties, to participate in a program where if they want to do upgrades to their property, a good portion of the cost could be paid for by this Main Street grant. Is that correct?
So the grant amount for a building renovation is a $50,000 limit. It is a 75-25 match. And if there are apartments, you can apply for up to $25,000 per apartment to upgrade them, maximum of 2. So any one property could potentially get a $100,000 grant, but they do need to match that with an additional 25%, which is about $34,000.
And you have 4 properties so far that have responded positively that they would be interested in participating. If we, obviously we can move forward with passing the resolution next week to give you every opportunity to apply for it. I know the grant itself is due fairly soon. If there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more people that express interest as we talk about this more and more each week, and they become aware of it, or they start paying attention to all those letters that we've sent out, or next time we knock on their door, they open it and say, yeah, that is a good idea, now I understand it. How much more opportunity will there be for people to participate?
So the grant application is due on the 27th of this month. If they are interested, they need to get a hold of me right away because there are certain documents that they have to provide, a letter of intent, a letter from their bank saying that they have the money. There's certain things that have to happen. If they want to apply after we've submitted our grant application, I would keep that on file because if something happens between award, assuming that we are awarded the funds, and execution, the project may have been reduced by someone who said they wanted it, and there may be other opportunities for them to get the money.
So what I'm also hearing when you say that is, if somebody owns property on Croton Avenue and thinks, maybe I'll want to participate, and then, but 6 to 8 months from now, they say, you know what, it's just not right for me, I'm going to do something else with my money, or I don't have, then them backing out is not necessarily a problem. And what they've done is they've given us the opportunity to apply for funds, and somebody else may want to take advantage of it. So if somebody's considering, maybe this is something I want to do, they're not signing on the dotted line and committing to spend any money right now. They're just signing up to say that they want the option to be able to participate in this if we get the grant money.
They do, but it's a little more work because they'd have to give me a scope of work and a cost estimate.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so that'll be on the agenda for next week as well, right? Those,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Yes.
You may said this clarification, Croton Ave, right?
Croton
From
Ave.
where to where?
From Route 9 to Pleasantville.
To Pleasantville Road.
Which is Roosevelt Square.
Pleasantville.
To Roosevelt Square, correct. All righty.
Great. So we are very happy to have Susie Ross with us tonight. Susie is the director, chairperson of Green Austining. There are so many great programs going on. Susie, thank you so much for coming and presenting all of your information. I'm sorry to ask.
So I'm not going to, I said that I have a lot on the agenda, but I'm not going to kill your evenings. I think I can get pretty much through most of this in about 15 minutes. So if I'm talking fast, I'm sure you'll ask me later if you have a question about anything I'm talking about. But I wanted to, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I don't know if a lot of people actually know where Green Austining, how we started and where the formation of this group came from. So I wanted to take the opportunity to let people know that Green Austining is actually a town and a village representation of community members. We were started in 2010 by a group of people, and I'm going to point to Stuart over there because Stuart was part of it as well. He was on the Environmental Advisory Committee of the village, the town, and Catherine Borgia was the town supervisor, and it was determined that the village and the town wanted to coordinate writing a climate action plan. And so there was a call for the public to come out and participate. Climate action plan was written, and as part of the climate action plan, we realized that we were going to need to create a group to carry out a lot of the messaging, because there's a lot of things that people don't necessarily, it doesn't have to be a law, but a group that would potentially be a great outreach arm, somebody who would promote particular, things that have to do with initiatives that the community might want to take up from much more of a grassroots perspective. So the mission was to promote environmental sustainability community-wide and develop practical methods that protect our natural resources. And our objectives were to create a forum for those in the community that are concerned about the environment, and to explore and prioritize sensible green methods and practices and identify ways to promote them. So we've been around for 8 years, pretty much so. And I have been chairing the committee for about 6 of them. I think about 6 of them. We've done a lot of things in the 6 years. I'm not going to give you a whole list of the things that we've done in the last 6 years, just kind of the highlights of things that we've done over the last several that have really been popular in the community. So something we started about 4 years ago was a community-wide tag sale. I actually remember Omar stopping it. We have a picture of you on the website somewhere, stopping by somebody's house on our very first one. And the idea behind the tag sale is to keep things within the community, to keep things from removing them from the waste stream, and to get to meet your neighbors. It was kind of a nice opportunity for people to go out there. So we charge a very little amount of money for people to get a lawn sign. We create a Google map. We list the things from people's registration forms about what they're selling. And it's become very popular. We run 2 of them every year. So the next one is October 6th. The Repair Cafe, that's something we started in 2017. I think we've had about 7 of them so far. The idea behind this also keeping things out of the waste stream by repairing, beloved but broken items. We were actually awarded Westchester County, the first Eco Awards from County Executive Latimer. He began this Eco Award program. I'm going to call it a program, hoping that he's going to do it in subsequent years. But on June 19th, we were awarded one. Our next Repair Cafe is going to be September 15th. We have fixed tons of items. This has served the community really well because it gives people an opportunity to share skills. So we've got some older people that attend that are actually their repair coaches that are fixing all kinds of things from clocks to tools to repairing, things that need to be mended, sewing-wise, jewelry, things like that. But people love it, and there's a lot of sweet stories behind things that we've been seeing at each one of them. We've even had people from Terrytown and other communities attend them, so it's kind of putting Ossining on the map. We, in fact, were the first in Westchester County. In addition to the Repair Cafe, we've been running e-waste drives. That started as an Earth Day festival thing, but we've been running them now probably 2 to 3 a year. And they also are, you can drop your things off in Valhalla, you could drop things off curbside, but actually our e-waste drives, we try to do them sort of 2 or 3 times throughout the year. At the farmer's market usually is one of them, but we've been pairing them up with the Repair Cafe, and we had one in the fall. We're going to do one again in September because it's a nice way. Sometimes people don't realize that the stuff that they're going to part with could actually be repaired. So that's kind of worked out really nicely for us. I wanted to mention, as I had mentioned in terms of our mission, part of our outreach goals are to be able to provide information to the community about things that are happening. And Westchester County has been very fortunate enough to have a group called Sustainable Westchester. And Sustainable Westchester, which formed, it was Southern Westchester and Northern Westchester came together. The
Energy Action Consortium.
Southern Westchester Environmental...
The Energy Action Consortium.
Energy Action Consortium. There was a Northern and a Southern. They came together and created Sustainable Westchester, which is much easier to say. And Energize Ossining was one of their first programs, and that was doing home energy assessments. The objective behind that was to be able to keep people from using more energy than necessary by sealing their home in a way that makes it more energy efficient, more comfortable. So you're saving money, you're saving energy. So that was rolled out, and we had a number of homes participating in that. And then it's been all over Westchester. We were one of the first communities to participate in it. As well, Solarize Ossining Briarcliff was launched. And I think we had 34 homes in Ossining participate in this. There's information still up on the website. I know that people are doing solar now, but this was a wonderful program that we were really happy to roll out. It was an educational opportunity for a lot of people that participated in it. And we hope to see more programming like that for our community. We like to do field trips every once in a while. We've taken people to the materials recovery facility. We just did one, I think, 2 weeks ago, and that is where we do all of our recycling. We also have done one trip, or scheduling another one, to the waste to energy facility in Peekskill. That's where most of our garbage goes, and one day we'll have a story about composting, hopefully in Westchester County, but for right now, everybody's kind of left on their own to that. So hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit more the next opportunity I have to come up and speak. This is a new program. The Green Ossining Sustainability Partnership is something that we launched last year. It is a way that we found we wanted to recognize businesses in Ossining that are doing green things. This program is basically, it's a green business seal from our organization that recognizes businesses that do such things as have, LED lighting, that they use that they compost, that they recycle, that they consider the environment in their various different operations. And so we've had a number of businesses so far that have been recognized for that. Most of these businesses are still waiting for their seals to be put on their window, but we'll get to that. But we still plan to interview any local business or anyone within Ossining that feels that they'd like to be interviewed for this. We have a little bit of a checklist that we go through with them, and we have a nice conversation about other things that they can do. But it's a great way, again, for us to recognize local businesses that are doing the right thing by the environment. The Ossining Green Food Scene is a beautiful little booklet that we actually created last year. Our Earth Day Festival theme was food sustainability. And this particular booklet, which was done by a Green Ossining member, Polly Franchini, it's on our website, but it was created for the Earth Day Festival. And the intent here, again, was to recognize businesses that had these really incredible stories about food sustainability. Some of them might have been home recipes they were giving to people, but a lot of them were businesses that were actually taking the initiative to be green. Again, whether it was the way that they created their menus, or the way that they serve food, or the way that they manage their business. So again, another way for us to acknowledge local businesses. Earth Day Festival, that's something that we're really proud of. We've grown the festival from about 300 attendees in the first year, which was it was 8 years ago, so it was 2012. And we've grown it to about 4,000 attendees. We are actually known in Westchester as the largest Earth Day Festival, and every year we try to improve what we do. Our vendors have improved over time. We get to be a little bit more selective now about who we welcome in. But it's a great day. We're proud of the festival and the work that we've done behind it, and I think we're at a point right now where we're really looking to make sure that people are really well educated when they leave the festival. We love the music, we love the beer, we love the food, but we want people to be educated. So save the date, because our next one is April 20th. Another thing Green Ossining participates in, again, going towards grassroots and community outreach, is the Riverkeeper Suite. We are fortunate in Ossining to be the headquarters of Riverkeeper, and Riverkeeper is the advocate for the entire Hudson River. And we have fabulous resources and a great partnership with the people that run Riverkeeper. Every year, and I think it was their 7th year, this past year, Riverkeeper has what's called the Riverkeeper Sweep, and that's an annual day of service to the Hudson River. I believe up and down the Hudson, there were probably about 120 different locations that were participating. Hundreds of people came out to clean up the river. Ossining's waterfront, we have a couple of locations. We're always looking for more. The Kill might be one of them if we could get in there to clean that up. But we're basically out there every single year, proudly picking up less and less garbage, surprisingly enough. This is something that we launched this year. So in partnership with the Village DPW, I'm giving a shout out to Paul back there, because we brought this idea to Paul. Actually, it was Riverkeeper's idea, and we felt this would be a great way for the community to recognize that our storm drains drain right into the Hudson River. So anything that you see on the street that it doesn't go in the garbage ends up in the storm drains, which ends up in the Hudson River. So the idea was to ID every single one of them. So these beautiful stencils were commissioned. They were done in Spanish, so we had three different designs in English and in Spanish. We had 3 dates. We're probably going to look for some more, but there's 2,000 storm drains in Ossining, and by the time all is said and done, every single one of them will be identified with some beautiful stencil design. The great thing about it, though, is that we've seen a lot of kids get involved, and it's really wonderful to see people care about the community this way. We've heard a variety of different people say, oh, is this really going to stop people from littering? No, it's not. We have some cultural changes that have to be made in our community and in other communities, but I do think that bringing attention to it will probably eliminate some of the waste anyway. The documentary and discussion series, some of you may have heard of this program. You may not know that it actually was brainchild of Victoria Garrity when she was on the, she was a trustee actually, and there was B legislation that was hoping to be written, and we, at the time, Victoria was actually also a member of Green Austining, and we had this kind of brainstorming session about how we might be able to create an opportunity for the community to come out and have a discussion about things in a different format. And so the series was launched in 2013, and it started off with some environmental twist, but we have screened everything from environmental films to social justice films. We've had, my bad, right? So we've screened things that had to do with the environment, but also racial inequality. We are screening something in next month, actually, that is focusing on undocumented immigrants and their plight. So, so the documentary series has been successful. I did actually want to mention that we, I think, are on our third Arts Westchester grant. And we are, again, really proud of this because this particular documentary and discussion series is not Green Austining members. It's actually a separate group now. But we have found that this has actually brought people not only from our community but outside of our community to love the library, to love the opportunity to discuss things in a very different format. And so this is next month, so a little promo here for, hopefully it's next Thursday.
Next week, yeah.
Next Thursday, July 19th. Please join us. We have a really great panel coming up. I'm almost towards the end here. Some of the things that we are doing on an environmental basis. The Great Healthy Yard Project is something that we've actually been promoting where and when we can. The Great Healthy Yard Project suggests that you can actually have a great lawn without fertilizers or chemicals or pesticides. And there is a book available, there's a website available. We usually have materials at every opportunity. In fact, the Austining Documentary and Discussion Series, we always have a table out with Cornell Cooperative materials that help people understand how to better take care of their lawn without the use of pesticides. Leave Leaves Alone goes hand in hand with that. That was an initiative, I believe, that was launched in Hastings. The idea behind that is that you don't need to blow your leaves, that in fact mulching leaves provides nutrition to your lawn as well, and there are opportunities for both professional landscapers and residential I guess you could call yourself a landscaper if you're doing your own lawn, but both for both different groups of people who can learn a little bit more about how to mulch leaves and the benefit of doing that. I know that the gas-powered leaf blowers is a subject that is on tonight's agenda. I do want to mention that Green Austining had written a letter in support of the ban. Before I turn to the next slide, I also do want to mention the fact that I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this, but about 2 years ago, it was brought to the attention of the municipality of both the town and the village that Roundup was being used. And if anybody doesn't know what Roundup is, it's also known as glyphosate. Glyphosate has been a known carcinogen, and it was being sprayed in our sidewalks. It was being sprayed to keep the weeds out instead of having them pulled. And so the use of that had stopped, and it was really just, hey, you guys know that this is going on, and nobody was really aware of it. And so sometimes it's that saying, you know, if you see something, say something. So this whole subject of leaf blower, of banning gas-powered leaf blowers, I know that if all of you have received my letter, I had made mention about the carbon footprint that they give off, the air pollutants, the allergy contributors, the noise, and the impacts on topsoil plants and watersheds. What I do want to point out, though, is that 15 communities have so far banned the leaf blowers. The schedules ran anywhere from May to September. Some of them include electric leaf blowers, but bizarrely enough, a city like Yonkers actually banned them as early as 2007. So I know it is on tonight's agenda. I just wanted to remind everybody that we are completely in support of a ban. And we wouldn't be the first ones to be banning it, and we'd only be following in the footsteps of others. Green Austin Community Gardens. So this was something that we brought to the board in January, and we're hoping to get word on what new developments might be taking place on that. We have some people that are very eager to get their hands dirty. And I'll leave that for you guys to get back to us on that. The Reusable Bag Initiative. So this is also something that has been going on throughout the county. The Reusable Bag Initiative has been part of a lot of topics in a number of different communities of late. It's even gone to the state, it's gone to the county. The idea is that we should be pushing the use of reusable bags. That would include a ban on plastic bags and a fee for paper, essentially. Some communities are doing a variety of different legislation. They're not all the same. Every community does what they think is best for them. But plastic bags are a problem in our community, as they are in every community. And even though our waste gets incinerated, I have pictures of them hanging in our trees. I'm sure some of you have seen those as well. So they litter our community, they harm our wildlife. Chemicals, they put chemicals into our food chain, and they are part of climate change. If Ossining feels that these things don't happen in our community, we are much part of a larger universe. So everybody has to participate in this type of change, and I'm hoping we'll get on board. Just to mention, again, as with leaf blower bans, we would not be the only ones to be participating in it. We would just be following other communities who've already taken a stand on it. So all of those in green are local communities within Westchester. I want to also mention that last night the Village of Pleasantville passed their legislation on this, and the Village of Croton they've already approved it, but they haven't written the legislation. So more news on that, but I'm really proud of those communities for being able to stand up and say something. The last thing actually that I wanted to mention was 511 New York Rideshare. They approached us and they asked us if we would want to participate in Car Free Day. And Car Free Day was actually, I think it came to us last year at kind of the 11th hour, so we really didn't have an opportunity to put very much thought behind it. But we were approached about a month ago and asked if we wanted to participate. Car Free Day is on September 21st, and we are already planning for it with the town and the village. We've thrown around some ideas, and the importance to Car Free Day is the whole concept behind making a pledge not to drive that day or to drive less, or potentially even to carpool. But we hopefully will have some fun things in store. And just to mention, the reason why this is so important is that the Hudson Valley has actually received a D in air quality from the American Lung Association. I don't know what goes into the contributions of that D. We kind of asked that, but I think it's probably indicative that we have a little bit of a problem here. And we do all know that transportation is a large part of carbon emissions, and some of it we can't do much about because we are a pass-through on Route 9A and 9 in many ways, but there are things that we can do as individuals in our community towards that. The last thing is just to mention that most of what I say is on our social media. We have a website, we have an Instagram page, and we have a Facebook page. So, so follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Green Ossining. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Should we come back to our seats?
Susan, do you want to join us up here? I know there might be a couple questions.
Yeah.
comments or questions for Susie? Please.
Thank you for all the inspiration. It's, I guess, the sustained activity, I think, is the most impressive thing, that you've been able to continue to add programs, do new things. The Earth Day is amazing every year. That's a miracle that it happens, because it's a one-day event, and you just pray it doesn't rain. And this last year was a beautiful day, so great. Thank you for your commitment to our community and all the work you do. A lot of great stuff.
I'll just echo the comments of Deputy Mayor Cotton. I am pleased to see the plethora of programs that you guys have provided over the years, particularly e-waste, the repair cafe, jump out to me. And also, I can't wait to see what kind of activities and suggestions that you have for Public Day. September 21st. Thank you.
Anybody on the side of the table have questions or comments?
So Green Austining has been busy. Thank you so much to all the volunteers, because I do want to stress the fact that everyone on Green Austining are Austining residents who are volunteer and are giving their time. So thank you. I'm happy to say that I, along with Green Austining, was approached by Car Free Day and that initiative. And I was on touch base with Susie, but we do have an upcoming planning call. So I look forward between the town, the village, our village manager, really work together and really make September 21st as innovative and as accessible. And the goal to me would be to really encourage people to literally want to not drive that day, but also understand why we're even doing it in the first place. So I kind of look forward to, along with my colleagues and the town, Green Austining, to really plan that day for everyone. And I also want to commend you on the Earth Day Festival. It was great to attend again this year, but to also see the amount of people that I knew that came from other communities that kind of said, yeah, our city is just starting it, or, and ours is small. And I was like, well, Austining was very small and was not what you see today, but they, along with all, other volunteers, kept investing time and energy and planning. And that's why I'm happy to say that we do have the best and biggest Earth Day Festival in Westchester, and I just thank you for that and everyone who makes that possible. So thank you.
I actually can't outdo anything that was said. It's very complimentary, but I will personalize it. My husband, as you know, I think you met Mark before you met me, was on a couple of these committees before we entered politics, and that was part of the inspiration. But on a personal level, panels, the solar panels was a part of your initiative. Like 3 days ago, we got the Nissan Leaf that was at the fair. We actually saw it there first. It's an amazing car. I know that the city of New Rochelle bought about 8 Nissan Leafs. Hopefully going forward, I spoke to the village manager about thinking about this village shifting over to electric. So it's a very, I think what you do in addition to the actual activities, like the Repair Cafe, which I've had friends from all over the country sort of email me about and say, what is this thing? I just Austining, like on some page I've been reading. But I think the really cool thing is the education, because part of what you do, and because you've been at it, is, which I think a lot of committees can learn from, is that you educate the public about real stuff that affects all of us, because we don't live with borders. And what one person in the community does affects everybody in the community. So it's not just about being environmentally friendly, it's about actually affecting the air quality that we have. It's about what goes into the Hudson River, which is very important to us. It's about water catchment and all sorts of stuff from A through Z. So, it goes right down to the personal household, mine included. So it's the Reisman family wants to thank you personally, but I think on behalf of me, I think I just hope we keep doing this for a very long time. And it's pretty inspiring, actually. Thanks.
Susie, I'm so glad you went all the way back to the Energize program, because that was before I was in elected office, but that was when you and I first worked together, because we were the two Energize liaisons, and the first house that was done was John Cotton's. Yeah, John's was the first one to be done as part of the Energize Austin program. And I remember I was there for his, when they did the study of your home, and your home had so little insulation.
Blower test, yeah. It was
Yeah.
pretty bad.
His walls were so uninsulated that the windows were better insulated than the walls. So he's had leaps and bounds of energy efficiency, and that's probably what made him such a devotee, that he's constantly trying to get the village to take similar actions as he took in his own homes. He's living his values. So thank you, John. Susie. I'm delighted to hear so many folks, trustees on the board who are mentioning the Car-Free Day, that jumped out as people. It's just in the last week that Susie and Dana and I have talked with the 511 people about some particular initiatives that might make for a really successful day, and because it takes place in September, Susie is, she's a good leader and gets us all on board early so we can be a good taskmaster.
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in a half hour. Please note that the computers will be shutting down in about 15 minutes. Please save all your work.
Okay. Did you want to say anything? Oh, for her to say in Spanish? She doesn't do it in Spanish anymore. I don't know why. So anyway, the Car-Free Day, there's some great initiatives that we've been trying to figure out if they'll work, and the village will have to take an active role in it. So so we're trying to come up with some proposals that we think are going to be successful, and then get everybody to either buy into it or make it better. I wanted to just note how many times tonight we've talked about the village and the town working together. The village and the town relationship is one where we have a legal relationship, we have an operational, functional relationship, but it's really never more obvious than when we talk about our environmental initiatives. So I'm really pleased. Green Austin is an excellent example of the village and town working together, and so many initiatives that are environmentally focused, on whether it's MOGO or talking about some of the other transit or environmental initiatives. The village and the town are really good partners in that regard. One item that you mentioned that we have discussed before in work sessions, but we had a little homework to do, and we've done some of that homework, is the community garden. One of what we were tasked with at the end of the last discussion, which happened during a work session, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, was a request by members of the board to take a look at what is our village-owned property inventory. So we now have that. People have had a week or two to review it and see if there were any other possible locations for consideration. And so I'll ask my colleagues, did anybody, as you were reviewing all of the parcels, were there any that seemed to you like alternatives that need to be considered for a community garden before moving forward with figuring out if the proposed location can work?
Oh, sorry about that. Here you go. Sorry. So at that work session, I offered to take a walkthrough with representatives from Green Austin, and I did. And we have quite a few areas that we visited, after getting coffee, of course, on Main Street, getting all caffeinated, and the 2 alternative locations that, so at first my concern was obviously, there's so much discussion about land use and what this board envisions for parcels, whether it be residential developments, parkland, recreational, whether it be leave it alone, just maintain it, and that's not even, we're not even at that point yet, we just have a list. After having a meeting last night about a particular law, but we see that there's even more of a comprehensive discussion that has to be had about our lands that we have. With that being said though, there are 2 locations, one that's my favorite, that's actually more accessible to people who don't walk and more accessible to downtown, and that was, I may not be saying this right, the side of the rec center where the after school program, where our new generator is outside of Bill Garrison's office. You go straight, there is the fenced area. There's also an entire property that goes, and it's completely fenced, that we don't use at all right now. And it's pretty big. There's 2 bus stops right along Route 9. It's centrally located downtown. So I thought that that's definitely an area, and even if we could go visit it, Susie and the whole team, Mayor Garrity, I think that's definitely an area It's also very compatible with the intergenerational component of community gardening. You have the after-school program, you have the senior center, you have parking, you have, so you're really reaching like kind of all the types of people for many reasons that you would actually want. That was my favorite spot for one, at least. And then I saw the potential for the possibility of pocket, and a pocket one. So like, if you go in between the Verizon building and to Church Street, which is part of our aqueduct, we have a lot of village-owned land there. That if you work around it, you could actually use the land better. So that's two potential areas. And again, you don't have to walk down a hill that's all the way out the way, walk all the way up. So I would look at areas that would attract more people. That'll be easier for kids and families to walk to. You also have Maple House right there. So I'm really trying to pull the whole intergenerational component of it. The rec center part's really my favorite because it's such a nice piece of land. It's kind of an island, and it just turns around. Being that our rec center is the hub of so much already, that's just an area that I would kind of want to consider. And I think, to be honest, it's more realistic to actually move the project forward than it would be at a piece of property that we're not even there yet to make a determination as to what that property would be.
So if I understand correctly, that you've done the assessments on these particular properties that you're recommending?
No, I want us to. That was just our tour.
Oh, okay. No. So what happens, what do we do next then? What are our next steps on this?
Well, who did you do the tour with, if it wasn't Free Nelson?
No, you did it with Sachin, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, so Sachin's Free Nelson. Then I guess our next steps are we have a few different properties to consider, and we need to determine the feasibility of whether they're good spots for gardening. I mean, they have to be accessible to light, so I don't know enough about these properties, except obviously the community center, and I don't know if Debbie, are you aware of the considerations of the community center?
Not yet, but
Okay, well, that's okay, we're just getting back to the conversation, so that's fine.
Yeah, just, if we may, I mean, we could actually plan, I mean, I didn't know we were going to be discussing this today, so I would have been a little bit more prepared, sorry guys. And Debbie as well, so what if we bring it up again at a work session? In the meantime, we could do a site visit. We can talk to Susie and Green Ossining about what it entails to do the testing necessary at all those potential sites. And there'll even be more, and we haven't even asked colleagues or residents about other potential sites downtown that I didn't find, right? So, but at least for those three, we could get the ball rolling on that. I mean, that's just a suggestion to my colleagues.
Oh, yeah.
I think, it's a great start. I don't think that was like originally on the topic. It just came up as a part of the big one. If I remember correctly, the community garden idea was generated by members who are neighbors together in that community and suggested that for where they live. So there's a couple of things. Number one is the idea that the desired outcome have another community garden, and where should it be? Or is it that people in our community got together and said, came to you and said, hey, can you help us create a community garden? Because those are two ways of approaching. So maybe you could think through, like, what is it that we're trying to accomplish here? Because neighbors coming together, and anybody can do it, and say, hey, we want to do this, should be analyzed one way, because they will also be working in that community garden, versus we have land, where should a community garden grow, which is more to your point. But I'm sure the two of you could just sit and do a little white paper that just says, here's our desired outcome. I think that would be helpful to all of us, right? Because my recollection is that actually the request came from people in the community coming to you versus what's the best. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm simply saying, who knows, maybe we'll have two new community gardens of two sizes, and that could be also something great. So if you guys maybe could just figure out next step, and if anybody else on the board wants to be involved, I'm sure that would be great too. I'd be happy to be involved. If there's any way I can help, I don't know in what way I can, but I'm sure that would be
No, I
great.
appreciate the distinction. want to just make sure that we're just not going to go around in circles, because what I heard at the last meeting was that we were going to wait to get an assessment on the properties in terms of feasibility of building. And if that hasn't been done, then we could walk all over the village and find great locations. But until we know that there are opportunities in the one that was specifically wanted by the community. And again, I want to make sure that you understand that we fully appreciate the fact that you are looking to help us create this community garden, and we're very grateful. But knowing that, as Rika indicated, the idea of community garden didn't come out of let's have one, where should we put it? It was expressed through a group that was going to be able to manage it. And I realize that it's not on tonight's agenda to get through this tonight, but I do want to make sure that the next steps, as I understood them, was feasibility of the different spaces for building or what have you. And I would love to go back to the property that we proposed and see whether or not there was any feasibility on that particular property to do other things before we move on.
So just a quick update for you, Susie. We have looked at our land use to see what we could do on that property. We still have the restriction of the lease agreement, and so until those people vacate the property, we won't be able to move forward. And we have started a discussion about any type of issues that there may be in the ground. So we are moving forward for an analysis, which I can share with you at a later time. But if I just wanted to say thank you, because after I saw you at the village fair and you said, we want to get rid of plastic bags, I was like, no. So I just want you to know that you've had an effect on my life, because I pulled out all my bags and they're in my car, and now I'm using them. So I also wanted to let you know that we are looking at electric vehicles, and I'll be talking to the board about them for our code enforcement officers. So yeah, go green. Thank you.
Okay, then, yeah, so when it said community garden proposal, that was just one of the many items that's on here, but we had sort of left it, up in the air the last time you met. And so I think we're still kind of in the same place that we were as far as, never mind the lease agreement for the tenants that are there, because I think they're sort of a month to month right now, so that's not a long-term initiative. But if they weren't there, going forward, what's the feasibility for development in that space? And I'm not sure we have that answer. And that's certainly a consideration for the board. And there's also a proposal of another public use for that space as sort of an historic site related to a site plan proposal that's in the review process with the planning board, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay, so thanks, Susie, for that lengthy and very rich discussion of all that Green Ossining is doing. And we now have our last item of the evening, which is the leaf blower legislation. And aside from beyond looking at the legislation, we have a couple of members of the community that I believe may be interested in that particular legislation, and I'd like to be able to reserve a little bit of time at the end to hear from community members. Stuart, take away.
Thank you, Mayor. I sent to everybody earlier today will be proposed local law 7 of 2018. This is based upon some of the discussions that we had at the April 11th and April 18th work session, April 11th session and April 18th session. As some of you know, I also sent you a copy of the town's ordinance, which was subject to a public meeting last night. And the town's ordinance is a little bit different than what we propose. Town's ordinance applies not just to gas-powered leaf blowers, but to all types of leaf blowers. And they do have a restricted period in there as well. They, in the code provision I put before you tonight, there's really a distinction between property that's a half acre and greater and less than a half acre. What the town has done is basically exempted large different types of groups, school districts, cemeteries, religious institutions. The town itself would be exempted from that particular. But let me talk about the proposal for the village. And
Speak to the mic, please.
I'm sorry, I apologize. It's the 5th meeting in 3 days, so we're just doing the best we can. With regard to this, gas-powered leaf blowers would be used and would be permitted between March 1st to June 1st and September 15th through December 15th. No more than 2 handheld or backpack gas-powered leaf blowers could be used at a time unless the property where it's being used is more than 1/2 acre in size. At the request of one of the trustees, there's a particular provision in here that the use of gas-powered leaf blowers on any property that is less than 1/2 acre will be prohibited as of January 1st, 2020.
May I have your attention, please? The library will be closing in 10 minutes. If you have any items you wish to check out, please bring them to the circulation desk now. The library will be open tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thank you and have a good evening.
As I said, the proposal is that gas-powered leaf blowers could not be used at all for properties of under 1/2 acre, effective January 1st of 2021. For properties that are more than 1/2 acre, that restriction would not go into effect, but would be what I mentioned before. You would have the date restriction and time restriction as well with regard to when it could be used. In addition, the provision would provide that violations of the chapter, a first-time violation will be a warning, so we're not immediately giving someone a ticket. Multiple violations, however, or further violations would result in a summons. Violations of the chapter can be supported by evidence which would include but not be limited to timestamp photographs, video, records of complaints, or sworn witness statements. So it would not just have to be something that's observed by police officers. Because regulating noise is somewhat difficult with the gas-powered leaf blowers, this is particularly important. So in other words, between the period of June 1st to September 15th, gas-powered leaf blowers simply would not be permitted. That time frame is similar to what you see in most of the other municipalities in Westchester County in terms of the period of time. Going back to the list that Susie had put up, there were 2 or 3 municipalities that also included electric leaf blowers and mowers. The town's ordinance would do that because it is not, as I said, restricted just to gas-powered. The village's ordinance would be limited to gas-powered, and there's, in fact, we define gas-powered leaf blowers already in the ordinance. But that's essentially what the village's ordinance is. As I said, it is different from the town's ordinance in that the town's ordinance includes leaf blowers, which is any device powered by electricity, gasoline, diesel, or similar fuel engine, which is used to push, propel, or blow leaves. As I also mentioned, the town's ordinance has restrictions, but their restrictions are not by size, they are by group. So it would include municipal, schools, religious institutions, membership clubs, golf courses, hospitals, retirement communities, parks, cemeteries, driveway, road paving, and sealing activities, and there. Now again, this is still a draft of the town's ordinance, they have not voted on it, but that would be the town's proposal with regard to it. The town's proposal is not, under what they have so far, would not take effect until May 15 of 2019. So that would mean that basically, if they pass it this year, it won't go into effect until next year because you're already in the summer. The provision, with the comparable provision in the village law that's here, is that this would not go into effect until December 16th of 2018. So that would then allow in other words, that would be the period of time, where you could not be using it because, as I said, usage would only be permitted from March 1 to June 1 and September 15 to December 15. Otherwise, gas-powered leaf blowers would not be permitted in the village. And again, in areas of less than 1.5 acre, that would sunset as of January 1st of 2021, and then no use of gas-powered leaf blowers would be permitted in anything less than 1.5 acre in size. So that's the proposed village ordinance following up on our discussions back in April.
I'm sure there's any comments, questions.
Something, I just that we have people who may, I don't know, one of the things that we were supposed to do once this was sort of templated is to speak to landscapers that we knew. That was what we were going to do. So I could go back to Austin Walmart since they've been around a long time. I don't know, Vinny, if you want to say anything, if you want to digest this and think about it and come back another time, you know, it's up to you. I know you're here for it, so
Come on down.
come down. Because
Why don't you join us?
yes.
You guys can go together.
Both of you can come, and either of you could speak. I'm trying to give you the first of it that rather than one of us, frankly.
Now, was this shared online? I know we got it by email today.
Right.
So have you guys seen this legislative this proposal yet?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
My name is Vinny DeSisto. I am the president of Austin Baltimore. We've been in the committee since 1966. I guess.
Can you use the microphone just so people at home can hear you?
Yeah, just listen to your
Very closely, yeah.
I guess one of my questions is what's going on right now. Let's say the law passed. Camp Woods Road, we have Con Ed, which are diesel excavators. They're road cutting saws, making dust, making dirt, and you have other groups doing woodwork, you know, chippers and all that. And let's say a guy's using a leaf blower on Bell Avenue, you're going to come in and give that guy a ticket, and the rest of the guys are okay. How fair is that? That's not fair at all. You're picking on one thing, a chainsaw and a road saw and all those other things are two-cycle, they make just as much noise, just as much pollution, and you're picking on a landscaper, which I don't think is fair. The technology is just not there for a landscaper. I mean, we sell a Greenworks backpack battery operated blower, it's $750. It's probably 1/4 of the blowing power of what a regular backpack blower has that they use. And you're asking them to go buy multiple of these to use to most of the year. It doesn't make sense, and they're no quieter. I mean, I welcome you guys to come up to my store. You could take we have a demonstrator model. You could take our battery blower and go home and use it. You try it for yourselves, and you'll see that the technology is just not there. So I really think that you should think about it and just go out and speak to landscapers and go to the towns, because the towns have backpack blowers, and you know the village people, you know, the cemeteries, they all have backpack blowers and bush blowers. And I just think you need to, you know, not follow what everybody's doing. You have to really look and, you know, care about your own community. And I understand that, you know, there's things that, you know, make pollution, and they're working on it. I work very hard with Steel Incorporated and with ECHO, and they are looking at ways to have recovery systems which are in place to have less pollution, and they are looking at battery-operated tools that they're spending tons of money on. But it's not ready yet. Maybe in 2-3 years, yes, I think it will be. That's my professional opinion. I had some other things to talk about, but go ahead.
My name is Frank Valvano. I have a small lawn business, and going back to the backpacks, this time of year in the summertime, they're not really being used much. It's basically just cleaning a walkway, a driveway, and cleaning off the road. I mean, as you all can see, grass is not much growing right now. So really your blowers are, if they're on a lawn, it's a matter of a couple of minutes just to clean the person's driveway, walkway, and part of the road. And like Vinny was saying, there's so much other equipment out there that is pollutant to us. And if this takes effect, I mean, if it goes after landscapers, it should be municipalities just as well. I mean, I worked with the DPW many years. And you got village vehicles that, you know, sanitation trucks, they idle for so long, picking up a person's pile. Sometimes piles are 5 to 10 minutes long. You know, so I mean, what's the purpose? And, you know, you're cracking down on us. You know, we're trying to do the right thing. Everybody likes their lawn clean. So it's like, why are you coming after us right now? I mean, going green is good, but now you're going to have more grass clippings for the village to pick up because people are going to start bagging more. And I just think it's not right.
Anybody want to feedback?
So feedback, how many landscapers, how many people do you think are employed in the industry in Boston? I mean, I don't think there's
Well,
like a data, but I mean, just because you guys are both here so long.
I mean, I have 35 customers. I mean, and there's about, I'd say,
How many landscapers?
No, not customers, how many people
landscapers are
employed?
there? Food in Austin?
Yeah.
100?
I'd say more than 100.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you figure you got about 40,000 people in this village.
I think there's probably that people that work for the village themselves. I bet you there's a good 10 to 12 that do landscape on the side.
The independent ones, you would say,
Yeah.
what, a couple of hundred, 100?
I'd say a couple hundred.
I would say
You know,
so.
I mean, and it's not only Ossining that they take care of, you know, Pleasantville, Groton, Millwood, Briarcliff, et cetera.
So, I do, this is in no way intended to persecute any particular business or category of people or property owners. Absolutely not the intention. The intention is both a safety issue, an environmental issue, and a quality of life issue. And we get complaints, you know, we had a request from Green Ossining to consider following along with similar legislation that we've seen in other communities. And we've had from people who just feel that their weekends, that any day that they're working at home is just inundated by, we have a lot of small lots all close to each other. And that is the difference between the Con Ed and a construction project is going on. Yes, absolutely their equipment is noisy, but that's a project, whereas lawn maintenance is a weekly thing. And if you're surrounded by 10 houses and they all have landscapers that come by on a weekly basis, then it's a quality of life thing, but it also, you know, whether you agreed with everything that was presented to us by the pediatrician, who's the environmental health expert that we heard from a couple of months ago, her focus was on what is the damage to hearing and to children. And so there are a lot of things that motivated us to do this. But the question is, it is in place in 14, 15 other communities in Westchester. So what are landscapers doing when they go to Yonkers and Tarrytown and wherever else it's in place?
Who's enforcing these laws? These laws are not being enforced.
So you're saying that all these other communities have passed these laws, it's irrelevant, it's just a law in the book that nobody's enforcing?
Nobody's coming in and complaining that I'm getting 15, 20 tickets at a time.
You're saying nobody's getting tickets in these
Nobody's
other
getting
communities?
tickets, no. I mean, you'll see them, if the community starts harping on it, then they'll go out, start giving tickets. Then, as soon as it quiets down, they stop.
I already know the neighborhoods where we're going to get called when there's going to be complaints. I can give you the list right now, and
Sure.
people are going to have to start bringing a broom and a rake during certain times of the year if we put this
I mean,
forward.
what
but-
happens with me? How do I test my machines? Am I gonna get a ticket at my shop? How does that work?
I don't know that that's addressed by the law. It's a good question. But I also, grass
No,
clippings?
I understand, listen, I understand, I'm for green, believe me, I've been to Green Day, had a booth there,
Mhm.
I sell mulching mowers, I understand all that, but it's gotta be you know, a better working relationship to not going into this like right away.
I mean, if you're not using blowers to clean off a lawn or a walkway right now, and people are cutting grass, they're going to be using catchers. And catchers are going to catch the grass, they're going to be put in brown paper bags, and there'll be more bags for them to pick up.
So you said you sell mulching mowers? Can you put those on sale? Because we want to see more mulching mowers, none of this
Absolutely.
grass clippings.
You still got clippings. You're going to have clippings. I mean, what about edging? What about when you're doing tree work? What about shrubbery? You know, I mean, a blower is a matter of a few seconds to clean up. I mean, you're going back to the winter time, all right? Some people use blowers to clean off one inch of snow.
Everybody uses blowers.
Clean off your car. You know, I mean, everybody uses a blower. I mean, it's...
The town uses backpack blowers in the snow, the sidewalks, in the village. Sorry, Paul.
I mean, you get an inch of snow or a dusting, and you...
I wanted you guys to come in because I think it's important about that.
July 3rd, we had the fireworks. What cleaned up the mess?
You got a village street fair, okay? When
We'll
they go
clean
down
up
and
the
clean the
mess.
street off, they're using backpack loaders to clean off Main Street. And I've done it for many years, so...
I know we're running out of time. This is, I think, an important issue because, I mean, you guys know there's many sides. I just want to clarify one thing about the landscapers. That these two people that contacted me about this law had nothing to do with landscapers. It's problems between neighbors. We have densely populated areas, small houses, where neighbors are complaining about neighbors, and there's nothing to be done. And that actually is one of the pieces that started the conversation. It wasn't even about landscapers, it was about individuals who at all hours of the day or night are using blowers to do all sorts of stuff, not just to clean leaves. And we have a lot of people that I guess work from home, and at least in these two situations it was, and they can't think, and they've got little kids running around and stuff's flying into, because their houses are very close. We have a densely populated downtown in a community. So it's something to also think about. But I just want to not make this whole conversation about landscapers and municipalities, but also understand that it's about individual homeowners and how they're using them, just to make sure we understand it's not just an industry thing, okay?
No, I just feel like
I
we're
know.
being pinpoint right now, that's all, you know?
Just a question for you, so, real quick, the ban is for during the winter also, is that what I heard? Is that correct?
The dates, store times.
That would be better for you.
December 18th.
Yes, March, you can do it, you can use them between March 1st and June 1st, and September 15th through December 15th. But from December 16th until basically, oh, I'm sorry, thanks a lot. During the winter time, you would not be allowed, that's correct. You'd not be allowed, that's right.
Nobody's sitting on the front porch.
Until March
Nobody's
1st.
sitting on the
March
front
1st.
porch in the wintertime. Why would it be banned? They're using blowers, they're really using blowers during the winter to clean out sidewalks and stuff. Really gotta look at that also.
Okay.
All righty?
That's why it's a public hearing. So we
In our earlier conversations, weren't they, when it snowed, couldn't they use them when it snowed? Or is that when we were doing the whole winter? I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear you.
I said, in our earlier conversations, I thought people could use them like right after it snowed.
For emergency situations,
For emergency.
but you know, Stuart, it's not in your piece, that for emergencies you can use them.
No, because it's in an earlier, it's in the ordinance now.
Yes.
So I would have, but it would have to be made clear to here. But thank you very much.
Now, I don't recall, but any reference to, we're talking about snow in the winter and people potentially using their gas-powered leaf blowers, which then it's probably a property owner, to remove snow from their walk or their driveway. Are there any hours of restriction? Because I know one of the complaints we got last winter was, why is my neighbor allowed to blow a third of an inch of snow at 11:30 at night?
Well, basically, from what I was told years ago, you had a certain amount of hours to have your sidewalk cleared. You have a sidewalk, and I believe it was like 7 or 8 hours after a storm. At night, which a lot of people do, snow plowing or clear snow so they can get to work the next day, etc. There's really no noise ordinance then. So I don't know how, the ordinance as far as the law applies as far as time-wise, because there are people, like you say, middle of the night, cleaning snow because he or she has to get to work the next day or has to get out at that time. So it's like, I don't know, we're like between a rock and a hard place.
It's finding a balance of addressing the concerns as well as...
I think 11:30 is a little late. I mean, I would make the noise, I would put an hour on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just...
Progress. We found some common ground. 11:30 at night is an inappropriate time to blow your snow away from your walk in the driveway. All right, we'll take little victories where we can. Thank you both very much for weighing in. Yes, please.
So I just wanted to say that one thing, and please my colleagues chime in if I'm wrong, but I want to speak for you. that we're all in accord is we all agree that because of health, safety, environmental, quality of life issues, there has to be some type of regulation. And the community expects us to address this because of those 4 key areas. With that being said, and I am in support of this. With that being said, though, I do have concerns about, we already have a capacity issue with enforcing the codes in place. We also have a lot of selective enforcement. We also have a lot of different communities that are in landscaping business or homeowners that we haven't, unless my colleagues or someone in the village haven't reached out to ask their feedback, that are also business owners. So I do still feel that, as I said last time, it's great that you 2 are here tonight, but I don't think we've done a good job at identifying what, including myself, what are the businesses that would be impacted by this, that could come to the table and help us make this a stronger, better, fair piece of legislation. Because I do feel confident that this board will do so because it touches health, safety, environment, quality of life. And what I don't like about the town one is Section D. This section not apply to the following entities and activities: municipal schools, religious institutions, membership clubs, golf courses. If you were to abide by it, and homeowners have to abide by it, we have to abide by it too. So we have to practice what we preach, especially with what we're passing. I have a big problem with that. But I just wanted to put my intention out there that I do support us regulating this type of equipment, whether it's used as a business, as a homeowner, whatever your role is in the village while you're here. We already have a lot of quality of life issues. This one is coming to us because it affects health, safety, and environment in addition to quality of life. So it's something that we have to address and discuss. It just can't be, and I understand that I agree. There are the village, utility companies, there are bigger challenges that we need to also address that also cause pollution. But I could look at Susie, that's also being addressed and looked at. But we need to do what we can do at this level when it comes to what we have control over. And if there's a way for us to work with other partners and to identify why we have derating air pollution in the county and what we have to do better, that's part of our responsibility as a community. However, I don't want to do that at the expense of businesses either, right? So there has to be a way that we can both come together to strengthen this piece right here. And it's great to have you 2 here, but I know that we have so many more property owners and business owners that don't really understand this legislation or how it would operate or how it would be implemented because either we haven't reached out or they don't comprehend or they don't know.
I agree with you, and I just feel whatever happens, I mean, we all try to love our neighbor. And I just think that it's going to be an uproar between neighbors, families, friends, etc. I hope it can work.
Trustee Basil?
Yeah, just a few final words. I'm definitely clearly still in support of this legislation. Different with my colleague. Actually, it's a question for Stuart. This is pretty much for handheld leaf blowers, right? This is not like
It's backpacks.
Is it backpacks as well, or?
I mean, leaf blowers are from backpacks, handheld, push blowers.
The only change, Trustee Bazemore, is that no more than 2 handheld or backpack gas-powered leaf blowers can be used at one time unless the property is more than 1/2 acre.
Right. So ideally, if you are more than 1/2 acre, with respect to institutions, whether it be religious institutions or schools or even municipality, and however you want to add up the acreage of land we're cleaning. So big, large properties can still use backpacks if they're really large. It wouldn't be ideal to.
That's just that they can use more.
They can use more than one. They can use more than one.
Okay. So I definitely understand the need to reach out. However, I want to just highlight that this is not something that is going full effect now. This is something that would at least start in December of 2018. So I don't know where the board is at as far as passing this. I don't know if we want to do education first before we pass it, or pass it then do the education. I mean, we have, this is probably one of our few pieces of legislation that we have that is not effective immediately. So I just want to just highlight that. Hopefully, you know, in this process, all those who have concerns will be able to have a better understanding if this board chooses to pass this, because there is a window of opportunity.
Okay, the one thing that I want to get back to is the enforcement question, and there's a question of how it's being enforced or how regularly it's being enforced in other communities, and I'm not sure, are we clear on what the enforcement would be here? Is it fines? Is it tickets? Is it who can issue those? Is that code enforcement? Is that the police department? Code enforcement's not around Saturday and Sunday when a lot of the violations could potentially be happening.
I'm sorry, let me take this bench. Mayor, the idea would be, first of all, for a first-time violation, the person would get a warning. So that first time, they're not going to get a ticket. It would result in a fine, which is what we have in our, you know, we have for other things. The view most likely would be that this would be, our noise ordinance is now, the effectiveness is dealt with by the police department. They issue, you know, violations there. So the thought here would be similarly that it would be, you know, it would be the police department. You know, that I don't have it that the code enforcement officer is the one doing this. As I think it's pointed out, a lot of this could be on weekends anyway, where our code enforcement officers are not there. But this would most likely be, you know, a violation that the police could write, and then the person would, you know, show up most likely at a code enforcement calendar on a Tuesday.
Okay, and typically, if this is being enforced like any other noise ordinance, those are typically, police officers aren't walking around listening for noisy problems. They're responding to complaints from community members.
Right, and as I pointed out, the majority of the violations you're going to be looking at would be that doing it in essence out of season, because you're not going to have a police officer with a decibel meter going around and actually registering, because even though there are numbers that are in here. This is more that if it's being done during the summer months and it's observed, then you're going to have a pretty clear situation that there's being a violation, or that they get a complaint from somebody who is able to come in with video or the documentation that in fact that's been going on.
Okay.
I just want to understand, how do we, just please remind me, how do we go from March 1st to June 1st? What was that conversation about having those early months?
Well, those are just the periods where it could be done.
Yeah.
This was taken up. One of the other ordinances in Westchester has this as well, has specifically when you can use it. And so it's sort of the converse. In other words, most of them have when you can't use it. This would have when you can use it. And then so you sort of figure out when you can't use it. So which would primarily be the summer months and the winter months. But I forget which jurisdiction it is, but they do it sort of at the same dates like this.
Okay. I don't know how effective we're going to be talking to other businesses or landscapers. I will say that oftentimes what we have found out is when we call a public hearing, that is a great time to definitely point your end to definitely get people out to have that conversation, get testimony.
All the bunch of people.
Right. And so the only way that I know that we can call a public hearing is if we're actually moving forward. So I'm just trying to figure out, is there enough energy on the board to move forward so that we can actually get those comments, and again, we can choose when we close them and things like that. But I think that's probably the most effective way to get people to come and respond to this particular legislation.
Okay. Stuart, did you hear anything, and I wasn't taking notes, but did you hear anything that was expressed tonight that would prompt you to make any modifications to the current draft?
Well, a couple. One was in terms of testing the equipment, and that's We actually have that in there now for generators. We put that in when we amended it last year, so we can put something in with regard to that, that the testing can be during certain periods of time when it has to be done, and no one can come over and basically give you something like that. So that, we can certainly add that in. Emergency use was something that was raised. It's already in the code now, but I think it needs to be made more specific as with regard, because we have sections now that are just for gas-powered leak blows. So I think we would want to put that in there, so that can be done as well. But those were the two primarily. I think the testing is particularly important, and we can clearly add that in. Because we already, as I said, have it for generators.
Thank you.
I mean, in all fairness, I think even with the public, I'm sorry, I think it needs to sit on the web. I think we should, if you do it like in your Monday note or Facebook or whatever, I think we should just reach out, and you guys could actually, you can put it in your lawnmower shop if you want, just put it up there. I mean, we only got it this afternoon. I don't even know how many of us were able to really look at it. You might call landscapers in Tarrytown, whatever. I mean, look, the purpose here is to do a balance that is fair to the citizens, people who do this for a living. There's a timing issue. Maybe it needs to be grandfathered later on, change them. I mean, there are a lot of balls in the air here. It's not like, that's the whole idea here. It's, nobody's trying to hurt anybody. So those are some ways. We all know people. I walked into your shop, I saw you the other day, and I just said, what do you think, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. No. And people can write us.
We just need some time.
Yeah, to look. I think that's step one, to Montel's point too. I mean, we just got it this afternoon. The public doesn't even see it yet. The town, I didn't know they were going to do this last night. I mean, the timing is sort of, I live in the town of Village, like many people, and I'm sitting here, we're going to have what? I mean, one of the things I spoke to Stuart yesterday about is, I hate for it to be totally two different pieces of legislation, especially with people that live in both the town and the village, right? So I know, but it doesn't, it just feels like the left hand and the right hand should like be doing things. It would be nice, as a third point, when you said what should people do, as a third point, is there a way for the public to also come and say, bring this in this way, bring this, maybe no one will respond, right? I mean, Montel was saying, like, it's hard to just reach out, but maybe if we have it in writing on the web, we give it some time, ask for some opinions even by email, maybe that could move us forward on this kind of legislation.
And we can also call for a public hearing that's, 6 weeks away. Like we can identify, we can call for the public hearing next week and say, we're gonna have a public hearing September, whatever. And then create a flyer, do some more outreach, make people aware of it, and then wait until after people are back from their summer vacations and they're starting to think about their lawn work for the fall. Okay, so then we'll look at our calendar and figure out a date and get the material available for people to look at and put together some sort of a flyer to build awareness. Frank, you wanted to comment on something else? Or?
Well, going back, like you say, with a flyer, where you normally send out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Going back to your flyer, where you normally say, like, you send out a flyer, like you have a sanitation schedule that is sent out to the public, maybe sending word out in English and Spanish to all residents. I mean, I know there'll be the cost of the postal, but I don't know if that would work to reach out to people.
We'll think of some ways to communicate.
I mean, I know I can only say so much, and same as all of us.
I can leave a stack at the shop.
Thank you. Benny just said he can leave a stack at the shop. We are over, but I don't want to end this meeting without just clarifying something that Trustee Herrera, that you said that you said there's a lot of selective enforcement. That's a pretty serious accusation. I want to be sure that if you're aware of selective enforcement, that you're please drawing attention to that with our staff. It's probably not something to discuss on television unless you want to clarify what you meant.
Yeah, sure. So I've been saying that we have selective enforcement for years. The challenge about that is having the property owners and businesses actually come out and use their names. But I'd be more than happy to discuss maybe it's, me reporting it and then kind of like, it's like if they ask for confidence and I break that, do I, but that's a topic that I could write a memo for to the board. It's something that's been known in Austin for quite some time through our business community, through our chamber. It's been brought up numerous times in meetings. I've brought it up in meetings before me, before you. Have we gotten better with our building department and other departments that have to enforce code and regulation and procedures? Yes, but we have had selective enforcement and selective treatment throughout departments, and if we have an audit to determine that, there are methods available to municipalities to do that. So I'd be more than happy to discuss that further.
Okay, so I heard you right. All right, so next week we will be at the courthouse for our legislative session. Thank you, everybody. We are now over time for the library. Do we have a motion to adjourn to executive session for discussions related to collective bargaining?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we will be moving ourselves to the Village Hall to have our executive session. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week at the legislative session at the courthouse. This meeting is adjourned.